All right, hey, welcome to this video about what we call the 3 I's in economics. Now, once again, this is about things like these markets here. Here's an example of a corn market, or let's look at a cattle market, actually. This cattle market's got prices that go up and prices that go down. So we've got economic lessons that we've talked about, but there's this other concept in economics called the 3 I's in economics, and that's what we're going to go over today. So we move our chart out of the way and let's talk about this idea of the 3 I's in economics. Now remember, be an active learner, write notes along with me. Things that I write on the board definitely are important, but the things that I talk about, add to that and get a good set of notes. All right, here we go. Start with the first one. First one in the 3, and we're looking at the 3, what we call I's in economics. And the 3 I's in economics start off with something called, let's call with incentives. So I'm going to write that in the middle of my page here. Let's see here, started to write that wrong. So quickly see if I can fix this. So incentives. So incentives are really the idea on our economic lessons. And so incentives relate to things like value, like things like that we talked about toys. In other words, the things that people get out of products. Everyone's got a benefit in the market. And so when you're looking at market changes up and down, you need to look at what are the incentives, like who is really leading or winning? Is it a producer surplus, consumer surplus? Who is really benefiting? And there's always going to be incentives that everyone is driven to go for. So the government is going to drive for its view probably on taxes or raising taxes or lowering taxes or on government debt. And government debt's got some incentive that they look at from some political view. In the meantime, you've got industry reps that are looking for certain values and producers in their own incentive. So everyone's got an incentive in the market, but these incentives are the first I, and that drives us to, once everyone's got their incentives moving, is that there will be interactions. These interactions are going to be kind of the cause and effect results. Really, we talked about in our economic lessons, unintended consequences. These unintended consequences could be the results. So we've got folks in the industry that have incentives to work a certain way. They're all going to get driven together in the market. That's going to create interactions where the market prices start to change. And then we're trying to understand those market reactions. And then there is the third I, which eventually we get to, is indifference. And difference really is the result of a new norm. So a new normal effect. We can look at the hay industry as one. So as fertilizer costs go up, as fuel costs go up, there's been lots of things, of course, supply and rain and lack of rain, I should say in some cases, create the incentives where producers have to charge more for hay. Now, fertilizer costs still could be up, but the interactions are that we end up with higher prices of hay, and we decide that that's what we're going to do. Now, unintended consequences come into effect. Maybe there's other alternatives to forage production that come about, or better ways of storing and making pelleted hay to bag it. You can keep it longer than the fresh product, or better pasture management. So lots of different interactions that happen. Then finally, you end up really with a new norm that that hay just cost $220 a ton. That's just what it is. That's how it works. If fuel costs go down and fertilizer costs stay the same, we think we ought to get cheaper hay, but we don't, because that's become the new norm. The market has become indifferent to the previous interactions based on the previous incentives. And then what happens is you come up with new incentives based on new policy. So the 3 I's in economics really represent a cyclical pattern of how things evolve over time. And if you can understand the incentives, if you can even understand or try to understand the interactions, you may quickly get to what the new norm is and then try to better manage your agribusiness if you understand these three concepts. If we just look at things like hay production as an example, and I'll write this, that we talked about our hay production as an example, or our hay production, really hay cost as a producer. These things create really an illustration of what's called the 3 I's in economics, and hopefully they help us better understand how markets work and how price is determined, especially thinking of the cyclical pattern. All right, thanks.